Have you ever met someone with a personality that's a kind of mix between eccentric and incredibly egotistical? Someone who thinks that they can do no wrong and that anything bad that happens in their life could not possibly be their fault? Personally, when I think of these characteristics, the first person that comes to mind, other than Trump, is Dr. William Moulton Marston, the creator of Wonder Woman. Now, it's true that I've never met Dr. Marston in person. I mean, he did die in 1947. But anyone who refers to themselves as a human lie detector and holds press conferences just to get attention is somebody I probably wouldn't want to hold a conversation with on the bus. I probably just nod and inch away slowly. Now, most of you are probably aware that a recent movie has been released called Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman, which refers to this very topic. Although judging from the commercials, the movie takes more than a few historical liberties. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to see this movie yet, so instead of doing a full review, I'm just going to be listing off some of the random Wonder Woman facts that I found while doing research that I thought were quite interesting. So here are my top 5 Professor Marston and Wonder Woman facts. Anyone that has watched Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman probably already knows that Dr. Marston was a polygamist. Well, kind of. He married his first wife, Sadie Holloway, in 1915, and then married his second wife, Olive Byrne, in a much less official ceremony in 1928. Both Marston's wives would eventually become inspiration for the character of Wonder Woman, especially Olive Byrne, as Wonder Woman's bullet-deflecting bracelets were supposedly inspired by the large metal bands that Olive wore in place of a wedding ring. The bracelet's connection to marriage is actually kind of surprising, considering that refusing to marry Steve Trevor was one of the staples of Wonder Woman's character back in the Golden Age. But Olive's bracelets helped inspire 2 of the world's most iconic pieces of jewelry, so no complaints here. In recent years, it's been suggested that the original incarnation of Wonder Woman was gay or bisexual, and while we may never have a definitive answer to this question, a particular Golden Era catchphrase has been highlighted as proof of this fact. Suffering Sappho, unlike the other catchphrases in Wonder Woman's vocabulary, is not based in Greek mythology, but instead refers to the poet Sappho, who lived during the 6th century BC and is best known for her poems featuring female protagonists expressing their love for other women. While for some this turn of phrase is proof positive that Marston intended for Wonder Woman to be gay or bisexual, the truth of the matter may not be that cut and dry. While Marston was definitely responsible for coining the phrase, he tended to use it sparingly during his run writing the comic. Also, Marston's wife, Elizabeth Marston, was quite fond of Sappho's poetry, so the phrase could have been included as a kind of gentle nod to her, something that Marston was prone to do. So while it is tempting to think that the first female member of the Justice League was also DC's first gay or bisexual character, as Marston and his 2 life partners are unable to answer the question themselves, it seems that this query is destined to remain unanswered. In her early days, Wonder Woman was often assisted in her world-saving efforts by Etta Candy and the Holiday Girls. And no, this is not the name of a band. The Holiday Girls were students at Holiday College and members of the sorority Beta Lambda, headed by Etta Candy. The Holiday Girls were Wonder Woman's cavalry, bursting onto the scene dressed in their iconic holiday college attire and helping to beat down the bad guys. However, the Holiday Girls and their iconic college fashion actually have a deeper meaning, as the letter H was, and still is, the symbol of Marston's alma mater, Harvard University. When Marston first started attending Harvard in 1911, the school was a male-only institution, as women were barred not only from attending classes, but from speaking publicly on school grounds. At one point, Marston and his friends even tried to convince the higher-ups at Harvard to bend the rules and allow suffragettes to speak on campus. And while their efforts were ultimately in vain, Marston clearly did not know how to take no for an answer, and decided that if women could wear Harvard apparel in the real world, then the fictional one would have to do. Interestingly enough, Harvard Medical School started admitting female students in 1945. Just 4 years after Wonder Woman's premiere in 1941. While the 2017 live-action movie introduced audiences to a different take on one of Wonder Woman's oldest villains, Dr. Poison, another villain from the Golden Age of comics was actually based on a real-life acquaintance of Marston's. While attending Harvard University, Marston developed an interest in psychology, which led him to cross paths with Dr. Hugo Munsterberg, the chair of Harvard's psychology lab and one of the pioneers of applied psychology. Unfortunately, despite his education, Dr. Munsterberg was not particularly enlightened when it came to the idea of women's education or suffrage. He believed that a woman's proper place was in the home, and that the only reason to educate women was to create more interesting wives. Dr. Munsterberg was also firmly against women's suffrage, as he believed that women had little capacity for reason and that they were unwilling to change their mind on any subject. a characteristic that he believed would make them terrible voters. And it's because of his views on women, in combination with possibly a number of other factors, that Dr. Hugo Munsterberg eventually became the inspiration for the villainous Dr. Psycho, an evil professor of psychology who plotted to change the independent status of modern American women back to the days of sultans and slave markets. And yes, that is a direct quote from the comic book. Unfortunately, Marston's time with the professor was cut short, as Dr. Munsterberg died of a cerebral hemorrhage on December 16, 1916. A fate we are led to believe also befell his comic book counterpart, as the background of a later issue of Wonder Woman featured a tombstone that read, "Rest in peace, Prof. Psycho." Despite possessing a doctorate in psychology and a law degree from Harvard University, Marston ended up gaining a rather sordid reputation among his peers for his somewhat unorthodox experiments. For instance, in 1928, Marston held a very well-publicized experiment concerning female arousal. The doctor gathered a group of 6 chorus girls, 3 blonde and 3 brunettes, and showed them a somewhat sexual film called Flesh and the Devil. During the movie, Marston measured the girls' blood pressure and by the end determined that the brunettes were much more aroused when watching the movie than the blondes. So I guess the saying is wrong, and it's really the brunettes that have more fun. Knowing is growing, I guess. It turns out that the so-called experiment was actually a media stunt for Marston's advertising business. And while Marston's love experiment did earn him quite a bit of recognition, it did not stop his advertising business from eventually going under. However, this is not Marston's last foray into the world of advertising, as in 1938, he appeared in an ad for Gillette razors. The ad was actually Marston's idea, and it concerned an experiment where a group of men compared Gillette razors with a competing brand by shaving while connected to a lie detector. I actually don't know what their end goal here is supposed to be, seeing as how a lie detector measures a person's heart rate. Then again, this is 1938, so maybe people are just impressed with scientists and fancy thingamabobs. You know, I think that statement may still be relevant when talking about today's consumer culture. Now, after hearing those stories, I bet a lot of you are probably thinking that Marston was a total diva who craved attention. And you're mostly right. But Marston also understood the power of media and how dangerous it could be when in the wrong hands. For instance, one of Wonder Woman's earlier villains was the Duke of Deception, a man who ran an advertising firm called the Lie Factory. The factory was operated by a group of female slaves, background characters that appear quite a lot in early Wonder Woman comics, who made and distributed lies and false media. I don't really know why someone would do that. I mean, it's not really like you can make money doing this, it's just kind of like a jerky thing to do. Hey, you know, I think this person was the first internet troll, just without the internet. Over 70 years later and it's still relevant. Well played, Dr. Marston, well played. Well, that's all the Professor Marston facts for this video. If you want more strange facts about this quirky fellow, then tell me in the comment section. I'm sure I have enough information to do another video about this guy. I mean, I have 9 pages worth of Marston research, and this video barely scratches the surface. Well, until next time, this is Silverjay saying remember to support your local library, and I'll be seeing you.
Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman. All the world is waiting for you and the power you possess. In your satin tights, fighting for your rights, and the old red, white, and blue.